Cher here. First of all, I hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas for those who are celebrating, and if the holiday has passed already or if it's still running, I hope you guys are having or had a wonderful Hanukkah as well, and I hope you all had other holidays that you spent that are wonderful so far. I know I did because for one of my post Christmas presents, if you have not checked the title of this video already, I finally got to see Coco! Finally! And I know it's too late for me to be doing this, but finally I got to go see it, so finally I can talk about it. And dear God, I cried twice. You can't tell because I cleaned my face while I was at the movie theater, but I had less mascara on when I came out of the theater than I did when I went into it. Because when people tell you that this movie is a tearjerker, they are 100% correct. This movie basically tugs at your heartstrings because this movie, as what people have been talking about, it's the definition of a family flick. It's a definition of a family flick. It's meant to be seen by the family and by those you really care about instead of just watching it by yourself, and I know for a fact that I don't like going to see movies by myself. So I'm really glad that my sister went with me to go see this, even though she saw this movie while she was in Germany because she's studying abroad there for a year. She saw it in German and she's like, "Oh, I understand like 75 to 80% of it." We go see it this time. She's her first time seeing it in English. And she said, "Boy, I completely missed a whole giant chunk of what was happening in this movie. And I had no clue what was happening at all." I'm trying to think about what to do first on the things that I liked about it, because there are so many things that I like about it. But of course, maybe I should get down to the obvious first. The design Pixar went with making this movie is drop dead gorgeous. Like, not only like but it's not only the world of the living that is gorgeous, because we've seen like parts of it in trailers and concept art and stuff already, but also like just the color blending in the whole movie as a whole. Like, you look at it and you're feeling the Day of the Dead atmosphere. You are feeling the colors of the Mexican culture. Like, Disney and Pixar got the art down to a T. And they knew what they were doing when they were creating basically the characters who are entering this world and just the type of atmosphere that this movie is going to be in. Though, as I've said, like, this movie is mostly taking place in the world of the dead because that's where Miguel ends up for most of the movie anyway. But the world, oh my god. The world of the living, though. The world of the remembered or world of the dead. Like, they use so many terms for it, it's not even funny anymore. Or I'm just thinking about the Book of Life. Because world of remembered, world of the forgotten and stuff. I know if it sounds like I'm going all over the place, but just so I can get this out of the way, this movie is nothing like the Book of Life, which I had originally feared when I went into this movie, because Disney and Pixar released the trailers. They didn't really say anything about it. It just showed you the world of the dead as one in one teaser trailer, and from how it looked, I was like, are they about to pull off another Book of Life? Because don't get me wrong, I love the Book of Life. It's a really good movie. I recommend that you go watch it if you haven't done that yet. But Coco. Coco is an experience. While the Book of Life is just a story, in my opinion, like just one of those like legend stories about the Day of the Dead and the holiday and all that good stuff, Coco is an experience. Like, you really have to pull yourself out of your element for the moment, and this movie makes you feel like you're in the movie. Just going back to the world of the dead thing, like, this world is massive. It is, like, they showed a little, like, behind the scenes thing before the movie. It was like, I don't know, like a 2-minute thing, because spoilers, they actually got rid of the Frozen short finally, because I could see Frozen on my own time, not when I'm paying $10 to go see Coco for an hour and 49 minutes. But they said during this preview thing that there were 800 or something buildings that they incorporated into the world of the dead, as you can see it while Miguel is walking on the pedal like roadway thing. But there are like times 10 or something as many lights that are incorporated into the world, especially in that backdrop. And I'm sitting here thinking, you gotta have major talent in order to incorporate so many things into one camera shot and manage to make it look extraordinary. Because one line drawn wrong and everything could have fallen flat on its face. But Disney and Pixar knew exactly what they were doing when they were making this movie. When it comes to art, of course. Like, other things I like too. Okay, music. Unlike the Book of Life, when Book of Life incorporated original songs and some pop songs that they just mixed Latin American influences into, all of the songs were made for this movie. They were written and made for this movie. And my favorite parts of the music portion is when they do the songs in Spanish. Like, not only does it remind you that this is a different culture that America is tackling in a film, but it also excuse me, getting over a cold. But it also gives you the sense of reminding you where you are. Like, these characters are not your paper-cut Americanized characters. They really dove into, like, where these characters were from, where this, like, little city, I'm sure they made it up for the movie, is. And it doesn't distract from the rest of the song, even when the actors go into English or sing in English, it doesn't distract from, is this supposed to be in Spanish or is this supposed to be in English? It blends it perfectly. And the people they got to sing, they don't try to pull off an actor who's singing for the first time deal. No, these people, they were trained for this. They wanted people who could basically sing their hearts out, because the story, like, not only teaches about family, it's also, like, what defines a musician, and the music played a major part in this movie, and they got that down to a T too. And I'm gonna be binging to this soundtrack on Spotify for months on end now, because I'm gonna tell you without spoiling anything, there's one song that's my new Do You Want to Build a Snowman? For those of you who've seen this movie already, I think you know what that is, but for those of you who have not, you definitely have to watch this movie in order to find that out. And now for the remainder of this review, I'm gonna have like my handy dandy bottle of water on the side, because I'm afraid when I go talk too much, I'm gonna start coughing to death, and this water is the only thing that's keeping me alive right about now. And then, getting down to the character side of things of what I've liked, there are two characters that I'm completely obsessed with. For the moment, I wish I could talk about it more, but maybe when I get onto full-fledged movie reviews at some point, I'll go into it, but I'm just gonna talk about these two for now. First of all, the main character, Miguel. Miguel, when it comes to Disney and child's characters, sometimes they get them down perfectly, like Lilo from Lilo and Stitch, and sometimes they don't, like the kind of infamous Coda from Brother Bear, because of his whole, like, personality. Disney and Pixar got Miguel as a child with struggles of what family wants versus what he wants. They mastered that formula. It's like, even when Miguel is suffering like these conflicts within himself, sometimes when you're angry or when you're frustrated, sometimes you do pretty stupid things. I mean, we've all done it. We've all done, like, pretty stupid things in our past before. But basically, it's Miguel's kind of ignorance of what the situation is as a whole, and it's not even his fault. It kind of gets him into trouble, and that's what basically puts him into the spirit world in the first place, because it's his ignorance of him thinking that his idol, the most famous Latino star from his city, Ernesto de la Cruz, was his grandfather. So, being the dumb kid he is, like, in order to win this like talent show or to even compete, he thought, I'm just going to take my supposed great-great-grandfather's guitar, and I'm going to use it to play in the talent show, because, hey, if I want to be a musician just like him, like, he wouldn't mind if I borrow his guitar for an hour or so, am I right? Yeah, because when it turns out, in the, Dia de los Muertos, mythos, if you steal something from any ancestor's, grave or mausoleum, you're basically cursed. Because even according to, like, the gods' standards, or, like, I guess this is also, like, their own, like, Christian views, but I'm not really an expert on it, so don't quote me on it. Like, they have their own sets of rules and what's considered sins, and trust me, stealing is definitely one of them. I mean, have you read Dante's Inferno? Like, you'll be sent to a darker, like, circle of hell for that. But yeah, what sends Miguel into the spirit world is basically he broke a very virtuous rule, society rule, if anything like that, and in order to fix his mistakes, he has to get a blessing from one of his ancestors. And of course, finding his ancestors is pretty easy, because Miguel's family is huge, and, like, basically any one of them could give him a blessing if he wanted to. But the other struggle is, even his ancestors, or the ones that he finds, are so against music, which is what Miguel wants to do, that Miguel doesn't even want to go back with the promise of he can't play music again. So of course, his inner struggles are even, like, taken to an umpth degree when his life is at stake, because if he doesn't get back home before sunrise after the Day of the Dead, he'll be dead as well. Like, his skin starts fading away and he'll turn more into a skeleton like everybody else. So Miguel's mission at this point is, of course, by his own stubbornness, which is another trait that works with him and works against him, is that he wants to find Ernesto de la Cruz, who he believes to be his great-great-grandfather, and he wants his blessing because he knows Ernesto will send them back, not with the condition of not to play music whatsoever. And later on, without spoiling anything, that will go completely against him. And of course, the kid is 12. It's like a coming-of-age story. He's going to understand, like, what's really important, but, again, I'd be doing major spoilers if I start doing that. But that leads to the problem of the next character that I want to talk about, because Hector is so good. But oh my god, he has so much backstory and so much, like, personality traits that I'm afraid that are gonna, like, spoil the whole plot altogether. So, Hector is basically, he's a combination of a sidekick and a mentor for this movie, because he does, help out with Miguel and to get back, home with the promise of music. However, he also, makes a deal up with Miguel that, if Miguel does get back home, he should, take Hector's, American accent speaking, his photo, and frame it and put it in, like, in a ofrenda, which is basically, their own version of, like, the De los Muertos tradition of, like, a shrine for their lost loved ones. Because with Hector's case, or Hector, damn it, he's being forgotten because not many people remember him or want to for some odd reason, but then again, I would be spoiling things if I dive deep into it. But it's not like Hector is a bad guy. Like, he's not bad at all. He's just completely misunderstood, and he's just a person who wants to have a family. He wants to be remembered. Of course, who doesn't? And we've learned later that if a person is forgotten to the point that nobody will remember, they're gonna fade away from the world of the dead. And they don't even know what's gonna happen to those souls. Like, the movie doesn't even explain it, which makes it even sadder. But the point with Hector is, like, as I said, he's not a bad guy. He has completely good morals under his belt, despite the fact that he will try to, like, scheme and, like, do anything to get what he wants. Like, there's a funny joke constantly throughout the movie where, he'll, dress up as Frida Kahlo, the famous, Latin American artist, because he wants to get to the world of the living so bad because he wants to see his family, and he'll also use that disguise to get in anywhere else, and it's completely hilarious. Especially with the famous, unibrow. Like, at one point, one guy mentions, unibrows are illegal, and Hector's like, really? Are they? Considering it's world of fashion in modern day, yeah, they kinda are illegal, but not to the point that you get arrested for it. But the main reason why I think Hector has to be one of my favorite side characters to date is how much of a good heart he has, because even when Hector finds out that his family is looking for him to send him back, he wants to send them back with his family. Like, even though that would mean he himself would go against his own values of music himself, he just wants to get Miguel out of the world. He just wants him to get out of there because he doesn't want a 12-year-old boy staying there for the rest of his life. Like, who does? Nobody. But of course, like I said, when you have a good person who's been trying to help somebody out with a deed that's very risky, of course going against them, kind of like a Baloo and Mowgli from the Jungle Book situation, of course it's going to have a very rough patch in between, and that does happen, but would I say it's cliche? Probably, but is it bad? No. Because, like I said, these are two characters that want something, and whether it's possible or not, they'll do anything to get it, and they also have good moral values that they'll know that they'll either protect themselves or the ones they care about, and that it all ties back into family. That's what this movie is about. It's about doing things for your family because you love them and you want to do anything to protect them. And that's been like Disney and Pixar's thing for decades. It's all about the family, and if no one else is going to pick you up, it's family that will do so. Okay, now to the things that I thought were, I wouldn't say bad, because this movie does not have anything bad about it. Like, I would totes 100% recommend this movie, but there are things that, kind of confused me, or that were like, really? You had to add this because, I don't know, it's a Disney Pixar movie and they had to add it? For starters, there are a lot of characters in this movie, like, a lot of characters. Most of them are related to Miguel by blood, like his living family and his deceased family are in this movie, and not all of them we get a lot of screen time as much, because the characters who get a lot of screen time are Miguel's abuela, his grandmother, his parents, and Mama Imelda, which is basically Miguel's great-grandmother. And of course, his great-grandmother, Coco, gets a lot of screen time, hence her name being the title of this movie. They get a lot of screen time. But, of course, because they are pretty much, like, the focus of the plot and everything, the other characters, like, Miguel's aunts, uncles, cousins, great-uncle, I think? Grandpa, or, I don't know. Those characters are kind of thrown to the sidelines a bit, but I mean, you know they exist. You know they exist because you see them in a couple of scenes, but they kind of don't get their own spotlight at all, and that kind of disappoints me a little bit because, don't get me wrong, I think there are a lot of enjoyable characters in this movie that make me wonder, like, why Miguel, like, is so tied to them, and what makes them basically great for Miguel's, coming-of-age story, but because this film it's less than 2 hours, and they need to fit it into the less than 2 hours time slot, unfortunately, not every character can have, like, a bit of relevance to the plot in particular, so they had to make some sacrifices with character spotlight, and the side support had to be one of them, and I completely understand that. I mean, it doesn't destroy the experience, but it's kind of disappointing how we don't have an overview of, like, Miguel, who's related to Miguel in this case, and who does the family like and not like, you know, that type of deal. The second thing is actually kind of bigger, but again, it still ties into the story, and it does it pretty well, but it's kind of irrelevant, but, like, without spoiling too much, there is a villain reveal scene, and I thought for a movie like this, I was like, really? You kind of had to add a villain into this? Like, they kind of frozen in a plot twist into this movie, which, trust me, it's kind of not as obvious as Frozen is, and it's not that terrible, but I just thought it was kind of unnecessary. I was just like, you could have just went with the cliche misunderstanding plot, but no, because it's Disney and Pixar, they had to add, like, some sort of villain, or else it's not officially a Disney or Pixar film. Again, it's not blatantly obvious, and it's not too terrible. Again, this plot twist kind of makes the characters more relatable and even more likable in a sense, versus, like, that one villain who I ended up, like, hating furiously after the movie was over, with good reason. But there's that storyteller part of me who just thought I could have retold, like, that part of the ending differently, because it will help Miguel connect more with his actual family and finally get him the blessing that will lead him back home. But then again, I'm not complaining too much about it, because the rest of the movie is fantastic. Like I said before, there was nothing, like, bad about it. Like, I would have pointed out something bad, like, a long time ago in this impressions review if I did find anything bad about it. But overall, this movie, like I said, it's an experience that you have to find out for yourselves. Like, not even I can tell you how great this movie is. Like, that's all that I can do as a reviewer. I cannot give you an experience in 30 minutes or so. Like, the last word, like, I'm gonna give you for this is, if you find this movie for free anywhere, or if you can still go into the theaters and buy tickets for it, it's definitely one of those that you will not regret watching. Like, I think this is one of Pixar's, like, best movies since Inside Out. Like, yeah, I think it's on the Inside Out level of fantastic. Like, if you like Inside Out, you'll definitely love Coco. It's one of those coming of age stories that you just have to witness for yourself. Like, it's an experience that I think every human being needs to witness one of their lives before they pass on. Like, you get a bit of culture, you get a bit of, like, perfect lesson learning. It's an overall fantastic movie. So that is it for me for today. I'm Cait Cher. It has been real, and I hope you have a wonderful New Year's. Ciao!